Today we remember the 29 crew members who lost their lives in the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald 50 years ago today, the last deadly shipwreck in the Great Lakes. Joining us this morning, we say hello to the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, Bruce Lynn. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today.
Hey, thanks for the invitation.
Listen, you know, so much history with this event. First off, though, tell us about your background and how you got involved with learning more about shipwrecks.
Sure, yeah. So I come from more of a museum background, but I'll say this, growing up, I read a lot of books by Fred Stonehouse about shipwrecks and the Fitzgerald in particular. There was another book called Great Lakes Shipwrecks and Survivals. And long story short, my family bought a cabin, which I'm very lucky, just south of Whitefish Point, and I really got kind of connected to the area more that way and through those books, learning about all the shipwrecks in the area.
Very interesting. And again, 50 years ago was that fateful day on Lake Superior when the gales of November came. Take us back to that night. What caused the Fitzgerald to sink?
Well, Matt, that's a great question, and nobody really knows the answer to that. It's still a mystery as to why the Fitzgerald sank, and I honestly think that's part of why people are drawn to the story. But just in short, the Fitzgerald had left Superior, Wisconsin on November the 9th, 1975, and crossed the lake. The Arthur M. Anderson was another ship that was out there that night, and both the Fitzgerald and the Anderson crossed the lake, taking more of a northern track. They stayed up in the lee of that Canadian shoreline, but by the time they were ready to turn and head to Whitefish Bay, where we are up here today at Whitefish Point as well, they made the turn, and somewhere along the line there, and there's various theories, but the ship was having some problems, using Captain McSorley's words. But 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point, that ship sank very quickly, so quickly that it didn't have a chance to get a distress signal out. And that's where it is today in Canadian waters, 17 miles northwest of Whitefish Point.
We'll talk a little bit more then about how the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum is honoring those lives lost.
Yes, today we have two ceremonies. We have one for the general public at 2 p.m. I think that's going to be a very crowded event because we have every year since 1995, we've had a memorial ceremony. But in recent years, we've made it more for the Fitzgerald family members and maybe individuals that had a real connection to the ship. We've had a number of guys that sailed in the Fitzgerald, so they would be a part of it. But at 2 p.m. today, to the general public, we'll have a ceremony that's going to be right at the base of the lighthouse at Whitefish Point. And then later on in the day, 7 p.m., we'll have that private ceremony for the Fitzgerald families, and that will also be live streamed. So people can look at our website, shipwreckmuseum.com, and they can find the link right there on that site.
Yeah, it's good to know about the live stream so people can take part. How has this shipwreck changed how shipping is done across the Great Lakes?
I think there's a lot of changes that came. For starters, and I think this is a true statement, that the ships these days, and really after the Fitzgerald sank, I think are a little bit more hesitant to go out into these big storms. That doesn't mean that they're not still going to do it, but I think, honestly, with the Fitzgerald being a 729-foot ship that sank so quickly that the crew didn't have a chance to get a distress signal out, was a bit of a wake-up call. So I do think that the companies, I think that the captains and the officers on those ships are maybe more willing to drop anchor and wait a storm out. That wasn't always the case back in the day, but weather forecasting also is so much better. It's almost like real time, or actually it is in some cases real time forecasting. And there's other recommendations that came out of the two investigations that followed the sinking of the Fitzgerald, which in a lot of cases are, I think, very helpful. But I think two of the big changes would be that willingness to wait a storm out, and also just how much better the weather forecasting is at this point.
Well, before we let you go here, talk a little bit quickly about the Great Lakes Shipwreck Museum itself. What will people find there?
Absolutely. So we're open. We're closed today, unfortunately, November the 10th, but we're open daily from May 1st through October the 31st. And we have a dozen shipwrecks represented in our main gallery. There's also an 1861 lighthouse that's on site. Think about that. Abraham Lincoln was president when that lighthouse was being built. People will see that and they can tour the lighthouse keeper's quarters. And we have a number of other buildings that are part of a museum ticket. We have a lovely museum store too. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, so all those sales help to keep the museum going. But it's also just a beautiful location. We have the shoreline of Lake Superior and Whitefish Bay here, and there's also a bird observatory. So there's just a lot for people to see up here.
Listen, we appreciate your knowledge and your insight this morning. And then a reminder one more time, where can our viewers go to learn more about the museum and watch that live stream?
Absolutely. So we do have social media as well, Facebook in particular, but if people want to go to our website, shipwreckmuseum.com. So again, shipwreckmuseum.com.
Oh, wonderful. Again, our thanks to you, Bruce Lynn, Executive Director of the Great Lakes Shipwreck Historical Society, for taking the time to talk with us today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.